Okay, I've got a 2008 Mazda Tribute I'm working on here. We're going to be replacing the transmission in this. It just pretty much went out all at once. Just started slipping pretty much with no warning signs. So we're going to go ahead. We've got another one. It's actually remanufactured. The price of these has gone up quite a bit for the used ones, so it just seemed to be more cost effective to go with a reman. But anyways, it's got the cd4e, we've got the 3.0 V6 in this. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. I have done one of these on a 2002 before. I'm sorry, it was a 2006, I believe. That I've done. So we're going to go ahead. I may try to do it a little bit differently, but basically we're going to go ahead and just get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is we're just going to get our battery out of here. I've got an 8mm, popping this off. Now this here, I can either remove this tin or remove it here. I think I'm just going to remove the tin and pop this wire off. And then we're going to get some 10mm, take this bracket loose here. Okay, we'll also have to remove this for our other wire that's running down that way. And now we'll go ahead and get on our bracket here. And you don't have to completely remove these. You can just remove it enough where you can get slack, unhook it, but you may have to remove it all the way. Alright, so we got that off there. Now we can go ahead and take the battery out. Okay, I wanted to point this out because this is probably going to look like yours. These have gotten corrosion all down in here, and I think these were supposed to be 10mm. You can see they're all rusted up, so you may be able to drive a socket on there and actually remove these, but if you can't, you're looking at drilling these out. And all you do is just get it centered up and drill the head off where you can pop it up, and then you'll be able to take the rest of that bolt out with some pliers. But usually these are very difficult to try to remove because it's so corroded. There's just nothing to get a hold of. So we're going to work on this a minute, and I'll probably wind up drilling these off of here. We got 4 of them right here. I think it's just these 4. Okay, these weren't actually as rusted as I thought they would be. What I was able to do is get some other various sizes, like I wound up using a 1/4, a 9/32, a 7mm, just driving it down on there with a rubber mallet, and just taking this and just basically knocking it down on there, and they weren't just really tight. So I just used some various sizes till I got the best one, because they were all rusted, but there was enough to drive it on there and get a hold of. Now they do also have specially made for rounded off bolts. You can get one of those. I need to get one of those kits for removing this. They really bite a hold of it. If you've got enough to bite a hold of, if they're so rusted there's nothing left, then you'll have to drill it out. But these actually all came out. We'll put some new ones back. Said anytime that I go to the salvage yard and I remove stuff, I just get the bolts and everything that come with it, so I wind up with some extras. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and just take this out of here, and we'll want to clean up a lot of this corrosion before we put it back. Now sometimes they'll be so bad it'll completely ruin your threads. About the only thing you can do is just coat it with some silicone or some grease or something. You can also see the corrosion getting down here onto these wires and stuff. That's going to really need to be cleaned off. That could turn into some big problems. If you've got a battery doing that, it's either a bad battery or your alternator is overcharging, which is really easy to check. But it definitely something that needs to be addressed, because you see it's going to start getting into this wire harness. If that's not removed, and it's going to be some big problems. Okay, we're going to focus on this air box here. We've got a 10mm bolt, and then it sets down in some rubber grommets there. Okay, this tube has a little plastic piece there. Push that back and just spin it over out of the way. I'm going to take an 8mm, loosen these bands up. Actually, this one can stay on. I'm going to pull back on this red safety lock, push it down right there, give that a tug off, pop your little clip out, and now this whole unit can come up and out of here. Okay, so we're going to start by just slipping this off right here, and then this sets into here, but it's also on some rubber grommets. We're going to pop it up and kind of push it, pull it back this way so we don't mess around and damage that. So there we got our whole air box out of there. Okay, as you can see, we have a whole mess of coolant hoses and plastic housings and everything that's all in the way. We got the water pump here, it's running to the throttle warmer. I mean, just hoses everywhere. Now, last time I done this, I took pretty much all this loose. Now, the bad thing about these hoses, they glue themselves on. When you disturb them, they want to start leaking. I started having leaks on one of these, and I think I wound up putting a little screw style clamp back. So whatever you disturb, you know, I might recommend you either replace the hose or put a screw style, because I developed some leaks at one. I'm going to see what I can do without removing these hoses just yet. I've got some 13s, I believe. There are 13s that hold that starter down in there. And I'm going to get down there. I'm going to see if we can get that disconnected. We're probably going to go ahead and disconnect this throttle cable here, and you see it's attached to the transmission dipstick, so we need to pop that off as well. But there's a clip, a yellow clip down here that goes on to this, and you have to pop that up, and I'm gonna have to get down in there and pop that up, and then that will come off of there. Okay, I stand corrected. I was thinking of another one. Don't touch the yellow clip. That's like the adjuster. It just pops off there with a screwdriver. So all I've done is just popped it off of there. So this up here, we've got to slide it out. Pull these, and then we've got this loose. Pop it off of there, and we'll just lay it up here out of the way for now. So we got some wires. You know, you want to take your time and label stuff, because you know, you're liable to get something in the wrong spot. Now we do have this kind of blocking my view here. This is on the back of the starter, and then we've got a bracket that was going into. So I think what we're going to do is remove this bracket here. I think it's got a few 10mm, and then this wire attached to it. I'm going to remove that first, and then I'll be able to get to this this starter. Now, a lot of these wires, we're going to take them loose. We're going to label them as well. And these clips, you just pull one way or the other. I think you pull up. Let me get one that'll actually work here. Okay, you pull up on that tab right there, and then these just slide off. But they're really really kind of stuck. And then we got to disconnect this here. So you push down on that little tab, and sometimes a screwdriver works way better. And then you pull up and pop that out of there. So that's what we're going to do, and we're also going to label as to where things go, and so we don't have any problems. Now, this bracket may wind up getting in my way to do what I need to do, so I think I'm going to just go ahead and take it off. So we've got 10 millimeters that are holding it down there on the bottom. Got a couple up here on the top. So I'm just going to get that out of the way, just because I don't want it to have to fight around this getting to the mount or anything. So I'm going to work on this, and then I'm going to get over here and take this bracket for the shifter cable. Okay, so got the battery bracket out of the way. Remove this shifter bracket. This is a tube running up here to this on the throttle. It was kind of in my way. I was going down in here to the starter and taking these out, and I was using this extension with the swivel, 13 millimeter, and also took the 13 and the 10 that was holding this. So we're ready to go ahead and remove. We'll see if I can get this out of here without too much difficulty. And I know I've got some wires and stuff here. Basically, I'm just going to try to wiggle it up through here and push these tubes over. Okay, so there's our starter out, and now you can see the torque converter. So we got that loose. I think we're going to go ahead at this point and go and work on the CV axles. May go ahead and get a few more of these wires loose. So we got this disconnected, but we've also got a wire that's running up into this box that we need to get out. So we may go ahead and get that one out of there. It's usually just bolted down. Looks like we've got one clips here. Pull that out, and then we got one going into the box. Okay, so we just unfastened that one on the bottom, and then this one right here in the middle is take a 10 millimeter and get that loose. So now you can see we got that part. We've got one more 10 millimeter for the ground. We'll go ahead and we'll make sure and mark that as to where it goes, and then we'll have this all detached. Okay, I took this wire completely out. I've also labeled where these little connections, clips, everything goes. Label everything so you don't have any confusion going back together. So as you can see, we're like slowly taking this wire loose. So just take your time. That way when you go putting it back, it'll go a lot easier. Push this clip in. You can see it's got a clip. Just give that a push in and pull that up. Just like that. It's a good idea to kind of tape these off so debris and water and stuff's not getting in there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and switch over to getting on these CV axles. So we're going to go ahead and get the wheels chocked and get the vehicle lifted up. And before we get started anything, we'll go ahead and start breaking these lugs loose here on the tires. Okay, I got a 19. We're just going to slightly break these loose, and then we'll work on getting it lifted up. Do this on both sides. We already got the rear wheels chocked. Okay, so this is where I'm placing my jack stand. We just jacked it up back here. Now once I remove the jack, I'm going to put some more blocks back here just as a added safety, because I'm going to be working under here for a bit. Now the other side, I've set it up the same way with the 6-ton jack stands, and I should have enough room like this, but if not, I can lift it up some more and just raise my jack stand up. Okay, so we're ready to remove the first tire. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now I've kind of just left my jacks in place for now till I make sure that I've got this height right to be working under here. Okay, the very next thing I'm going to do before I get on these CV axles is go ahead and remove this plastic shroud. You got one on both sides, and you just got these 10mm. You got a little Phillips head plastic rivet over there, needs to come out. And then there's some more of these tins that's going to be underneath here that we'll have to get to as well. Okay, so this, you just get your little Phillips and back that out. Sometimes you got to pull it out, and then that other part should just come right out of there. And we're going to stick these bolts and everything back where they go so we're not losing them. Okay, so coming underneath, we got one that's going to be here. We got another one there and right there. So we're going to go ahead and take those out, and then this will drop down out of our way. Okay, so there's that piece off out of the way. Now we can actually see something under here. Now, the next thing, before I get ahead of myself, we're going to have to get back here and get this drain plug. And we're going to go ahead and get a 3/8. All it takes is a 3/8 extension, ratchet, whatever, and get that loose. So plan on it being tight if it hasn't been removed before, but we'll go ahead and get this draining, and then we'll go proceed on to the CV axles, because if you do take the CV axles, you're just going to have transmission fluid going everywhere. Okay, I've got my 3/8, and I've got my long extension here, extended handle, because it'll be tight. When they do them in factory, they get them tight. Right, this is going to pour out of here. Be mindful of that. There we go. It comes out really fast, as you can see. Now, by the looks of this, I don't believe this has been changed. This is very, very black. So with these types of transmissions, you don't have access to the filter like you would one with a normal pan. You have to split them, and to get in there to it, it's not easy and requires transmission removal. So it's really imperative that you keep the fluid changed, keep it clean, because the filter is internal and not easy to get at. Okay, the first thing we're going to do before we go any farther, if you don't have an impact, you'll have to put your wheel back on and put the weight on it, and get your breaker bar and cheater pipe to get this loose. And I'm going to see if I'm going to spray a little spray lubricant here, and I'm going to see if we can't get it with the impact here. Okay, and it does help if you get this and let it soak for a bit, but we'll go on and try it and see what it's going to do here. Okay, I may have to let that spray lubricant set. I'm going to go ahead and put a little on the other side. Okay, I had to get straight on with it and push with a little more force. Okay, with that nut off, now a lot of times if these haven't been messed with, they're going to be kind of seized in there. And I've just got a rubber mallet. And I can tell that it's not wanting to move already, so we've got a little bit of a problem with this already. But this is not uncommon if these have not been messed with. I'm going to go ahead and get the other nut off the other side, and we're just going to shoot a little more of this and let it set for a moment. Okay, another thing I'll do to start off with is I'll put this nut back on here. Okay, now we're going to take the 32mm socket and just slip it over that nut, and I find that this works pretty well. Alright, so let's give it some good hits. Okay, I don't think it's moving a lot, but I think it is moving. Okay, and if I can't get enough force with the rubber mallet, I'll just use this and get my 8-pound sledge here. Usually I can give it some good hits. So we'll just keep working with this one. Okay, these are really seized up. This is one of the worst ones. I've got a couple more methods. Usually if I just keep hitting it with the spray lubricant and work with it, I don't want to get too rough with it and break anything, so I'm going to let just keep spraying them a little bit at a time. We'll get let it soak. If I still can't get it to come loose, then worst case scenario, we'll remove the whole thing from the knuckle and the control arm, and we'll just take the whole control arm off and pull it out, and or we can pop it loose from the ball joint there, whichever way. So anyways, I'm going to keep doing this. Hopefully this is going to come loose, but if not, I'll take it, remove the whole thing, get it where I can actually stand it up and get some good pressure on it. But usually this will work. Okay, now I have extra one of these nuts laying around. Just wanted to point something out, that these that come with it have this washer that if you get real rough, it'll knock this washer completely off of this nut and you'll have to put it back on. But I have extra axle nuts. You'll notice that this one is solid. So we're going to go ahead, because I'm going to have to hit a little harder. So we're going to go ahead and put this one on where I don't have to worry about it, and then we'll get my socket back on there again. Okay, so the CV axle is not moving, so we're going to go ahead and just switch over to taking our brake caliper bracket completely off here. We're just getting the lower one loose, and we'll switch to the upper here in just a moment, and we'll get this wired up here out of the way, because we're going to have to go about this in a different way. Just this one's seized up pretty bad. I had on my 2002 that I had to take it out and really get rough with it to get it loose. So we'll get on that upper. Okay, we got our upper right here. We'll go ahead and get a hold of that. We may need a little bit of an extension for this one here. Okay, so I got a little bit of an extension here. These are going to be pretty snug. Alright, so we got that loose. Looks like we can just get it the rest of the way with our fingers. We'll get our wire. Get this wired up out of the way. Alright, there's that. Okay, so we just got it setting up there, held up with some wire. Okay, these little things you gotta turn with your pliers, get them so you can get them to spin their way off. And they're kind of a nuisance, but they hold the rotor while you get the brake caliper and everything on. Okay, and I took a flat screwdriver and got under it and got it started. Once you kind of get it started, these will come pretty easy. I'm not really a fan of these things. They're more trouble than they're worth. Okay, with those off, we should be able to get this okay, it is seized up a little bit. Okay, I've got it tapped loose there now. So we'll just get over on the other side in a minute and do the same thing, but you see this ball joint down here does not look good. So here is a look at this, see if it's already busted, so water and everything can get in there. So you either change the control arm itself or you change the ball joint, it's your choice. And the control arm don't just look horrible, so you probably could get away with that. Okay, the next thing I'm going to work on is this lower ball joint. Spray that down good. And we're going to take a 15mm and get that nut off here first. Alright, now this should be able to tap it back through, but you may have to tap up on this. You don't want to damage your threads. And you also may have to turn it to get it to come out of there. Okay, so I've got it moving there now. So there's that. Okay, I'm trying to knock this lower ball joint out. I'm taking a piece of pipe, aluminum pipe, and a hammer and hitting it. But in this case, a pickle fork will be much easier for you. But I've been spraying it down and just hitting it here. Okay, so you can see we've just about got it. Just soak it down with that penetrating oil. And I'm just gonna, but a pickle fork will work a lot faster. Okay, we've got an 8mm. We're gonna go ahead and disconnect this ABS here. And just plan on all this stuff being difficult to get apart if it has not been in the shop and been messed with. And if you're in the rust belt, then sometimes you just can't get stuff loose without cutting things and getting heating torches and stuff. But this has been pretty difficult for the most part. And I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna have to get it out to be able to get the CV axle out of the knuckle. Alright, so this thing's kind of stuck in here as well. Alright, so there's the ABS out. Right now at this point we're going to get over here on the knuckle. Okay, now we're working on this nuts side here. I'm using an 18 millimeter. We'll get on this lower. And we should be able to tap these out in a minute. Now we got to go ahead. We're going to get on this this outer tie rod. Okay, now this right here is an 18 as well. I do typically like to use a impact, because what happens is this thing will start spinning on you. But it looks like it's coming this way okay. But you can, on these original, you can hold this with a wrench here, and while you're taking that loose with another one. I've got a tie rod tool, but usually I can pop these off. Okay, there we go. Took a few more hits. Okay, and these tie rods and control arms are looking horrible. And even the inner one is not real. Don't really feel any slack, so maybe just the outer ones. Okay, we're just going to gently tap these out with my rubber mallet. Okay, before I take that bolt out and get too carried away, I'm going to leave that in place. I've got my big crowbar, and we're going to go ahead and pop this CV axle out from the transmission. Alright, so I usually just take my crowbar and get in here in some manner or another. But you got to be mindful of wire connectors and everything else. Watch what you're doing. You don't want to break anything. And it looks like I'm clear. If you can see where, okay, it's kind of difficult for you to see, but basically I'm just up in hooked on the back side of that CV axle, and then I'm just pulling up on it. And I've yet to find one that I couldn't get with this. Alright, and there we go. So now that I've got that loose, I'm going to go ahead and take this lower bolt out here. Okay, so you can see we've got it loose back there. So when I take this out, I'm going to be able to pull this out of here. And you want to be careful and don't put this in a bind and pop these out of their sockets. So make sure that you've got it loose back there if you're going to be doing it this way. Okay, so here we are. Looks like I'm still holding a little bit up there, so I need to get my crowbar back into place. Okay, so I just finished popping it out. I shouldn't have any fluid coming out of here because we took care of all that. Okay, so now I'm just going to finish tapping this up and off of here the best way I can. It's pretty loose, but it's still holding by a little bit here, but it is loose from the transmission, but I got to pop it up off of here so I can finish pulling it all the way out. Okay, we finally got that knocked down off that ball joint. If you ever have to redo these again, they'll never be this difficult. It's just when you first mess with them, they're like so rusted on there. But here we have this. We're going to go ahead and get this set upright. So this is going to be setting up, and basically we're going to fill that cavity up, those splines up with penetrating oil, and we'll make sure we get some wood under here to protect this. Basically we'll be setting on this part, knocking it out, but we'll make sure that we keep everything protected. It's not flopping around getting damaged, and we'll go ahead and finish knocking this out. Okay, basically you got to set this up somehow or improvise something, but you get it set up and get something stable, get it blocked up or somehow. This is how I'm going to do it for now. If it's I'm going to kind of stabilize it one hand while I'm hitting it like I was doing in the vehicle. But the good thing about this is that I can get penetrating oil to going down through here now. Okay, so like I said, you can take this, and this will work its way down through these splines, believe it or not. It really does work. And this is just usually my last option if I just cannot get it to cooperate. And the more you let this soak, the better off you'll be. What you'll notice is that it'll start actually running out down here eventually, but we got this up. We don't want to damage that. You want to be careful over how you set it up, but you want to get it setting up high enough where you can get this vertical and get some good penetrating oil soaking. I'll probably have to do the same thing on the other side. So this is just kind of a setback. It slows things down, but it's something that's going to have to be addressed. And if you go back and you grease these things, you don't have this kind of problems when you go back to mess with it again. Okay, so I've had it soaking. Let's see if it's going to move. Alright, so I'm going to start out with just my rubber mallet. I'm going to have to be careful. It's going to fall. But you can get so much more force like this. Okay, I just wanted to show you, we do have the penetrating oil is working its way through, as you can see, which is a good sign. It's still not moving for me. I can tell that it's not moved just by the location of it there, but once it goes, I figure it'll go all at once. So I'm just going to keep letting it soak and keep working with it here. I figure I'll have the same amount of trouble on the other side. Like I said, the good thing about it, once you get these out once, you don't have to fight with this again. And there is going to come a time when you have to mess with one of these. Okay, so we do have it moved now. If you can see, I've been hitting it with my big sledge, and we've actually got that knocked down flush. So what I'm going to do now is back it off. And since I've got it knocked loose, I'm going to actually be able, I'm going to have to get a hold of it here. Okay, so all I've done is just backed it off a little bit, and I should be able to knock it down with my rubber mount. But the penetrating oil, the longer you let it set, the less you have to get rough with it. Okay, so it's going. I'll have to reposition before it falls here. Okay, so I've got as far as I can get it by using the thread. It's still stuck a little bit. If you're going to hit on it at this point, use a rubber mallet or get you a punch and hit in the center there. Okay, I couldn't find my center punch, but I got this puller here. Basically, I'm going to use it to hit it the rest of the way. And I'll have to get a hand on it here in a minute because it's probably going to go all at once. There's not much holding it. Okay. Okay, I'm going to have to get a hold of it here. It's just about to fall. Okay, so we have it here. And I would just like to point out that this is how I've removed the worst, some of the worst CV axles I've ever had. And you see how that penetrating oil is able to make its way down through there. That's really what ultimately broke it loose. Okay, we're over here working on this passenger side now. On top of this CV being stuck, the rotor is also stuck. So I've got it soaking. My plan now is I'm just going to pull the whole thing out, rotor and all. If you get too rough with these, you will knock your bearings out, and then you're going to be replacing wheel bearings. Don't ask how I know. So I'm going to try to be delicate with it. Worst case, for now, may not even remove it if it just absolutely won't come off, because I don't want to get too rough with it, because I've had this happen before. So got enough work to do. So anyways, we're going to go ahead, you come up here and look, we've got two of these 13s. I believe they're 13, don't quote me on that, but I'm going to take those loose, and we're going to go ahead, take these bolts out. I've got them loose. We're going to pull this whole assembly out once we knock this pin here down. So also we've got the stabilizer, well, no, tie rod. We got to get the tie rod loose over here. But anyways, pretty much doing the same thing on the other side, except with this CV axle, instead of popping it loose, we're going to take those bolts out and pull it out. It's just hard to separate it at the joint shaft in there. Much easier to pull the whole assembly out. So that's what we're going to do, and then I'm just going to get this set up and knock the CV out kind of the same way that I did on the other one, because I can get that off. And I'll soak this rotor with it setting vertical, and it'll come off there a lot easier. So anyway, we'll get to work on those, and I'll show you this whole thing will pull out of here. Okay, so I'm just using a long 3-foot extension, 13mm on a swivel, and we're going to be able to get at both of these easily. Okay, here we have this whole unit laid out here. What I'm probably going to do is separate it here at this joint shaft, because I would like to be able to get this standing up, and it's simply too tall like this. So I'm going to take and hit it right here and try to get this to separate. I'm just going to kind of stand on this part, and I'm going to hit it and try to separate this out. This is what this looks like. You just have this little dust shield that with the two 13mm nuts and the studs coming through that bracket in there, and it just slips completely out. Real easy to move it that way. See, here is your bracket, and I just stuck those nuts back on there so we're not losing them. So yeah, if this suspension stuff hasn't been messed with, just plan on having to fight with some of this stuff. So I think that's what I'm going to do, unless I can figure something else out. I'm going to get it set up, see if I can knock that loose, and get it set up here like I did the other one, so I can get a lot of penetrating oil soaking down through where these bolt holes and everything are, and into the CV axle, so I can separate this out. Now, I mean, I could put it back in like this, but the next time that you have a problem, you're just going to be fighting with it then. So it's better to go ahead and handle this stuff while you're at it. Okay, I just wanted to show you how I'm knocking this loose. I've just got a piece off the top of my 2-ton jack, or 3-ton jack stand rather, and I'm just standing on, got my foot over here on this part, holding this little piece, and just putting this here and hitting this with a rubber mallet. And you can see that it's coming out there. Got everything kind of supported. So there we go. And this is actually not rusty, which is good. We'll just put some more grease and we slap it back together. It's real easy. This one is hard to get loose, but it's easy to pop it back on. I don't really know why. But anyway, we've got that loose there now, so we can go ahead and get this kind of standing up like we had the other one, and we'll just work on it from there. And then we'll get back on actually trying to do something with the transmission. Okay, we're going to be working on removing this subframe. We're going to go ahead and get this stabilizer link on both sides, and I think we're going to go work on the steering column before we get on these bolts and stuff down here. And this one's just a lot easier to remove than the lower one is. Okay, I've got my long 3-foot extension, 3/8 with a 13mm. If you look up in here, now you may have to rotate yours if it's not lining up for whatever reason, but the bolt that you're after is right there, that 13mm. So if you can't see that from here, then you're going to need to rotate your steering a little bit. Now also go ahead and put you a mark of some sort, so you put that back the way that it was. We're going to go ahead and take that bolt completely out right there, and that's going to free up that collar that's on that rack. Now sometimes those will be a little rusty. You may have to wiggle it and use pry bar, some spray lubricant if it's kind of stuck on there, but it should come loose. Okay, now we're over on the passenger side, and you're going to need a longer extension over here. I've probably got like 4 foot of extension going up in here, and I'm getting to this center mount, and that right there is a 15mm that we're going after. So we're going to completely remove that bolt. If it doesn't come all the way out, we will go underneath and finish pushing it out, but we need to get that bolt completely out of there. Okay, I was actually able to get that bolt out just by using the magnet to pull it on out of there. Okay, the next thing we're going to get here is our exhaust, which is very easy to remove. You're going to take these two 15s. You do got, let's see, this one right here. Got to disconnect your O2 sensor and pop it off of these. Okay, well, it's being stubborn, but anyways, you're going to pop that off there, and you're going to get back here. You've got a couple of 15s right there, so let's go ahead and take these, and then you're going to come back here. You got 2 more 15s that are on those studded bolts there. You can spray them down if you want. Now, on this piece right here, what you want to do is spray some white lithium on this, and either pop it off here or pop it off right here. But definitely spray that with white lithium or some type of grease, because those things are very difficult to get off if you don't have something on there. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then we're just basically going to pull this section out and out of the way so we can get on our subframe here. But these are very easy if they're not rusted real bad anyways. Okay, so here we have it loose. We just used a pry bar to push that off that boot back there. So we're just going to pull it right out through here and get it out of the way. Okay, with that exhaust out, the next thing we're going to get on is this brace that's running along through here. We've got two 15s holding it right there, but we also got a bolt right there, 15 on that mount. So we're going to take that out probably first, and then we're going to get on these. And then we're going to come back here and take that out. We might actually have to go, because it's on a stud there, we may have to go ahead and take this little cross brace out as well. I was thinking I might could leave that, but I don't think it's going to allow me clearance to get it out of there. But that's what we're working on. And of course, you know, we're going to have a mount. We're going to have two mounts left holding the engine and transmission on each end. It will twist once we get these mounts loose. But let's go ahead and get this one, and we're going to determine whether I can take these two and the 18 and slide it out, or if I'm going to need to go ahead and loosen this brace up, which it's just a couple of 15s on each side, so it's not really a big deal. Okay, so that big bolt is out, and the engine kind of rocked back a little bit. We're going to go ahead and get on these two 15s here now. Okay, as I expected, with that 18 loose, it's not going to let me slide this out. So we're going to go ahead and just take this center brace, two 15s on each side, and just take the center brace out of the way. Okay, with that out of the way, that'll allow me to drop that down, and I'm going to go ahead and finish removing these two 15s. We'll get this whole piece here off and out of the way now. Okay, here's a view of this piece out of here. It is really nasty because the transmission and the oil pan's been leaking. Okay, so now we're going to get to work on this subframe. Now you might be tempted to want to leave it in, which, you know, I have before, but it's really not worth the trouble. One thing I'm not certain is whether that mount's going to catch up there. I think I can drop it down, but we'll see what happens. But everything's loose. We just got a couple of bolts out here on either side. You got that big one, and then you got the one that's right there. So, but anyway, this transmission, basically it wants to catch various parts on the subframe, so it really needs to be out of the way to make a smooth lift up in here, unless you want to take the engine out as well. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get on these two bolts, and I'm going to get my little dolly over here. I'll show you. We'll get this lowered down. It's really not that heavy, but we're going to get my little dolly, and we're going to roll this piece out of here. Okay, this is just my setup for lowering this. I could lower the vehicle itself, but I don't want to do that right now. But I'm going to take it loose. These two, we're going to set it. It's going to set down on this. It's not terribly heavy anyway. But then I'm just going to take out a few boards at a time to get it low enough to where we can actually pull it out through the side here. No problem. I've just done this on both sides. I got my little movers dolly, some 2x4s and stuff that are going across to the other side. You see, we got to get boards underneath of this to hold it. So we're going to go ahead and take these out now. Okay, and these are 21 millimeters, by the way. Okay, so this is the rear one. We're just going to slowly start taking it loose. This is a bolt. The other one is on a stud. Said the only thing that you may have trouble with is your collar on the steering column there. Let me get this back out of the way here. So I'm going to loosen this one up. I'm going to get up here to the front one. Okay. I'm just going to do this a little bit on each side, and this is dropping down. I'll do this and then I'll go back to the other side and loosen it some more, but I do have the boards under here so it just doesn't fall. And I've done this utilizing a couple jacks too. It's just whatever you want to do to make it easy. As you can see, we got it dropped down here. The only thing that's holding me is the mount up there, but it's very difficult to get the brackets loose, so I'm going to try to just shove it back a little bit, and I think it'll come right loose. Okay, so I've got it loose from that up there, and just slowly taking these boards out and dropping it down. It's not very heavy. You can see I'm able to lift that with one hand. I'm going to take the blocks off the other side, and I should probably just roll it right out this side right here. Okay, so here's a view of this. We should be able just to roll it out of here. Just don't lose any of your hardware. We're just going to get this thing out of the way. Here's a view of this out of the vehicle, just so you can get a look at it. And now would be a good time to replace these, but they don't look real bad actually, but it's definitely the time to replace anything if you want to do it. So I'm just going to tarp this thing over and set it out here out of the way so I've got room in my garage. Okay, so we're going to go back under the vehicle here, and one of the things we want to pop these clips out of this little rubber piece here. Sometimes it will break. That thing's really woolly. Okay, we're going to rotate the crank and start getting to our nuts in there. Another thing we're going to do, these lower bolts, we're going to take all of these out that are down here. See this one here as well. We're going to remove everything down here basically that we can reach from the bottom. And what we're going to do is we're going to lower the vehicle down on and get it setting onto my dolly, and we'll simultaneously support the engine, because once this is taken loose, then nothing's supporting the engine anymore. So we're going to have to support this engine while we get the transmission out. But if you can look back over here now, you can see how we got room to move this. So we don't want that subframe to be in the way. So we're going to go ahead and get on these lower bolts. We'll get on our flex plate bolts here. We're just going to turn our crank 18 and start taking each and every one of these out from down here at this point, and then we can get on these lower bolts, get the vehicle lowered, and hopefully we'll we can get up top and get something done. I want to try to get, I'm going to attempt to try to get this out of here without removing the coolant hoses, but I really don't know on that because last time I did have to remove them. Okay, so we got our 18 set up on the crank here. We're just turning that until it lines up. Okay, so we're just taking our 15. Now these are very tight. You want to try to get you some kind of an extension when you're taking these loose, because they're going to be very, very tight at first. So you're just going to rotate them around. And these are like a self-locking nut, so it's not going to be easy. It's going to be pretty tight, I guess you could say, removing it all the way. So we're just going to keep on here. Okay, so you're going to have 4 of those 15 millimeters all together. So we're going to proceed on now. Like I said, we're going to get this one and get the 15 up there that we can get easily from this side. We're going to get this one here, and then we're going to go ahead and go up top and take a look at what we can do from up there. But we're going to go ahead and get these lower ones out before we go any farther. Okay, these here are actually 13 millimeters, by the way, so I was incorrect on that. Okay, you'll want to keep in mind which bolts go where. Some of these are different lengths, and you'll want to mark them as such. Whichever ones are the same, like these 2 bottom ones are the same, but this one up here is a longer bolt, so you'll want to make sure to mark that as to where it goes. So I'm going to get over here now and get on this bolt. It's just like a studded bolt. We can take this nut off and just slip it out, or take it loose here or whatever, but either way we got to get that out of there. I think I'm going to hold it with an 18 and we'll get a hold of this over here. Okay, this here is actually a 15, so I can hold it here. I can either remove this or remove it, the whole stud, that way by putting one of those E-Torques on there. Okay, I'm just using an E8, so you don't have room to go out that side. You got the exhaust in the way, so you got to remove the stud and pop it off that way. Okay, so there's that one out. So we'll take a look up top and see what we can do. But again, said label as to where these bolts and stuff go. Okay, for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower it. You see about 7 or 8 inches here or so. I'm just going to get my jacks on both sides, and we're going to lower this down until the transmission's on this, and then we're going to also get a support underneath this engine here, which is not a big deal. We just want to keep it from dropping down, and then we're going to start taking the bolts up top loose, and we should be able to just slide this dolly out this way, no problem, and get it. Now the studs will try to hang up a little bit on the flex plate, but it should come out of there no problem once the bolts are loose, as long as everything's not in a bind. Okay, so we're simply just lowering it down a little bit on both sides. One thing I do have to get on is the cooler lines. See, we got one right there. Those are usually a pain to get at. If I can show you. Here's one right here. we do need to get on that before we go any further. The bad thing is these things like to drip and make a mess, so label them as to where they go as well. But we need to go ahead and get these loose, and so we'll work on the bolts, and we'll make sure that we haven't missed anything as far as wires and such. Okay, those transmission lines were horrible. Got them loose. Next time I'm cutting those and just getting new lines. There's just no sense in it. They're way too difficult to remove for whatever reason. But I tried tugging, spray lubricant, everything, and I'm surprised that I didn't even ruin the hoses. But as you can see, we got it set in here on the dolly. We're going to get a piece of wood in there. We got the body on blocks back there basically at this point, and this is setting down here. So I'm going to go ahead, and really I don't even need a piece of wood there. It's just supporting it. It's not going to hurt the oil pan any. But I'm going to go ahead and start working from up top, see what I can get loose. And it's getting dark on me, but it took a long time to get those cooler lines loose. So I'm going to start working on the remaining bolts up here, and there's some hidden ones under there, but I'm going to try to get to these as best as I can. You can see them. It's not wanting to focus, but anyways, those are all, the rest of them are up here, one down there, and I'm just going to try to see if I can get these out without having to mess with these coolant hoses, because if I can, it's going to be a lot easier for me. I don't expect there to be any movement from the engine anymore, so everything should be safe. Once we get the transmission loose, then we'll go ahead and start pulling. We'll raise the vehicle back up and start pulling it out the side here. Now I will, as you can see, it'll have to, once we get it loose, it's going to have to come up a little bit, and I may even have to come back up a little bit and tilt the engine just to be able to clear this right here. I don't know just yet. The last time I did it with my cherry picker, so this time's a little bit different. But nevertheless, we're going to go ahead and pop this mount off because it is being supported. Ever how you want to do it, I'm just going to take these 15s that are on top of the transmission itself. I'm going to go ahead and take those off, and then we'll see what we can get done here. Okay, so I'm just removing this whole thing. That back bolt was really stuck, so we're just going to take that out of there. So, like I said, the frame, you know, we're not going to be able to go far over this way without having, looks like it tilted slightly, so we'll definitely have to raise this frame. Okay, what I've been working on, I got my O2 sensors disconnected, and I'm getting down here with this extension and swivel and going under here. Like I said, I'm just going to see how difficult this is with leaving all these. I really hate disturbing this mess, but so far it's not too bad, and I would expect I should be able to get the rest of these by using swivels and extensions. But as you can see, I'm getting to this first difficult one that's right here, like below the water pump, and we're just going to start there. But I've got the wires disconnected and just kind of throw it over here out of the way, the O2 sensors. Everything's disconnected. The connectors down at the bottom are disconnected. You got to be careful with those. They got tabs you pull up on. One's on the transmission. Those things are brittle and easy to break. Okay, these other ones appear to be pretty straightforward, if I can show you. If you look right in here, you can see those three. And we should be able to just get back here with extensions and get those. See, we got one down there. And I believe this is the only ones that I have left. So I'm just going to take those out. It says setting on the dolly. It's not going anywhere. And we also, we got the engine supported, as you can see. And the only other thing, once we get it loose, so we got enough room at this point, we can move this back. We got a little bit of room here. We can go back probably a couple inches, which should be enough to get it out of the engine. And once we actually get it out of there, then we'll go ahead and lift this frame up a little bit more, and so we can slide it right out through here. So we're going to have to go up, you know, quite a bit higher, but we're just going to come right out this side with it, no problem. Okay, so we've got, with those bolts out, all I did was I come over here to this side, if you can see, like this little ear, and I took my pry bar and just got right there and moved this a little bit. You can tell it's loose. You can see that it's coming apart. We're going to go to the other side and do the same thing. We want this to come apart evenly, or it's going to hang up on the flex plate. So we're going to go around to the back side here and just kind of do the same things, gently pushing it apart. Okay, it took a little wiggling, but we do have it loose, as you can see, and it's setting actually pretty good on this little dolly here. You see how I've got it setting on that 4x4 and then this back here, so it's setting pretty level. The engine, you know, you can put some more blocks and stuff if you'd like. You know, it's definitely, be cautious. You know, put 2 jack stands, whatever, just make sure that you know that it's not going to fall, and be safe. But I'm going to go ahead and we're going to raise this back up, because as you can see, we cannot bring it out through here without raising the frame. But I am pretty well loose. I'm going to pull it back just a little bit more to make sure I'm completely free, and we're going to start lifting this up here. Okay, you can see we are completely free here, so we're ready to go ahead at this point, start lifting the frame. We're going to just mainly lift it on this side. If it gets to tilting too much, then I'll have to worry about lifting this side over here and getting under my jack, getting under my engine. So we're just going to take it easy. Okay, one of the things I did neglect to take loose was the dipstick. As you can see, there is a little 8mm down there. It's kind of hard to get in here to show you, but anyways, there it is, right down there. We're going to take that 8mm out, and then we'll just wiggle and pull that dipstick right up and out of there. Okay, here we are coming out with it. Now, I did remove some of my boards and lowered it down a little bit more so I didn't have to raise this up so high. I'm beginning to wonder if I have dragged them out of here with the cardboard just by lowering them down with my lift, but this works out pretty well. But we're going to go ahead and just get it over here in the garage. We will be needing a lot of these parts off here, so definitely keep your old transmission until you got everything swapped over. This was the only thing that I'd forgotten. It was connected to the throttle up there. That's your vent tube. Okay, so if you're not using impact, you will need to hold the crank over there. Impact's going to be the easiest for taking them loose. However, we will have to hold it when we're tightening and torquing them back down. Okay, now we're getting ready to take it off. And by the looks of it, looks like they may be a small amount of leakage, but it's actually not real bad. But nevertheless, we're going to go ahead and get this removed. We're going to try to get a screw started in here. Basically, we'll drill a little hole and get a screw started, and that should allow us to pull it off there real easily. Okay, so if you can see that little hole up there in the top, I had to run a couple trial runs. You want to make sure you have a new bit, because the first one broke. The second one went through like nothing. You can see the little small hole that we got right up here. So that's all there is to that. I'm just using like a little 1/8 bit. Like I said, just make sure it's a good drill and that it's a new one. Now what we got is we got a little screw here, little Phillips screw. I say it's kind of important to go in the top, so if you do make a mistake and hit the side or something, it's less likely that you're going to have any sort of a leak if it's up in the top. So don't do it in the bottom. Make sure you're at the top there somewhere. Okay, so we're up in the top there, and if this doesn't work for whatever reason, then we'll just start another hole, and because sometimes they will strip out or whatever. But even if we can't hit anything, we can grab a hold of this screw and simply pull this out of here. And it looks like we're kind of missing what we need to be hitting here, so we may just have to go ahead and pull it off. Okay, so I just got a hammer on here and basically pulling this off. Actually, the screw, for some reason I was hitting on the edge in there, and the angle I was at, it didn't want to push it off, so it worked better to just pull it off of there in this case. Okay, so this new one's actually better. As you can see, the old one has just pretty much got smooth sides on it, and the new one actually has these little ridges that help it seal off. So the only thing that we're going to do to this point is we're going to get some clean oil all inside of this before we slip it on. The outside doesn't matter, but we want clean oil, either put it around the crank or put it on the inside of this seal as we're slipping it in place. Okay, so we took the time to clean this surface up. We've oiled the inside of our seal, and now we're going to try to get this started on here. Okay, so we've got it started on. Now the biggest thing is we don't want to push it too far and get it too crooked. So we want to make sure that we get it going even. We'll start tapping on this side. Just using a block of wood. Just till we get it down nice and flush. Alright, so that's pretty well flush. Might be a little smidgen bit high on this side. Put this a little. Alright, so that's pretty good right there. All nice and flush. Okay, so we got our flex plate and our bolts and our medium thread locker. We're just going to go through here and start putting these in one at a time, and we'll line our mark, our pink mark, back up again. Okay, so here we go. And now we're just going to put a little medium thread locker on each and every one of these. And we'll get them started by hand. And then, like I said, we'll have to prop our breaker bar over there on the other side so we can hold this steel. Now, when you're tightening these, you know, basically you kind of go in a star pattern. But definitely don't skip the Loctite. Said if you're doing any work, this is definitely a seal you don't want to skip, even if it's not leaking. They're not more than like $10 or so for these seals, and it's well worth to go ahead and put you a new one, because it will start leaking eventually. Now this one was barely leaking, it looked like, but you know, he'll start out like that, and who knows, another 50,000 miles and then it's pouring out of there. So if you've got this part, you absolutely want to go ahead and replace that seal. So I'm gonna get this last one in here, and then we're just gonna go through and snug it. And I like to kind of do a two-step process on torquing these down also. Okay, so we're just going to go through here. Like I said, you'll kind of just go in a star pattern or whatever, and just getting them evenly. Go back. So that's the first step. And now we're going to go ahead and get our torque wrench, and we'll get our breaker bar set up for our first round of torque here. Okay, this is my setup over here. So if you're working by yourself, I just got this propped with the jack stand. Got our 18 on the crank. It's just kind of just propped and wedged there, so this thing will not turn when I go to torquing it over there. Okay, so we got our 17 millimeter. We're going to go ahead and start going through here, torquing these down. We'll just kind of go in a star pattern. We're going to go 30 foot-pounds to start off with. So where I'm at, it's a little bit difficult for me to get leverage right now. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and set it to 60 foot-pounds. Okay, I had to get repositioned. That wasn't working for me up top there, so we're going to start with that one. And then we'll go through, we'll do them once, and then we'll come back and we'll double check them all. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and finish torquing these. Go back over to this side here. Alright, so now at this point I'm just going to go around and double check each one of them, and then we'll be done here. Okay, here's our rebuilt transmission, and you can see it's got a new torque converter in it, and it's been completely updated with all of the changes and everything. There's like a whole list of things that they do to these when they rebuild them. So, you know, unfortunately, you know, you can go with a used one, but you would get the same problems that you have with all these eventually. And like I said, the original one over there, 130,000 miles, and it wasn't even treated that roughly, a lot of highway. But anyways, what I'm doing here is swapping over every little bracket and piece because it's completely bare. Even these studs, these E8s, you got to take the studs out, move them over. The lines that are going to be going in here have got to be moved over. Set all the brackets, the vent tubes got to be moved over, and even the sensors that we have on here The shifter mechanism has to be installed. So it's completely bare when you get it. See, here are the sensors. I want to put a little dab of grease and pop those in. Our speed sensors, and the neutral safety switch that goes up here. I really wish that it came with a lot of new sensors. I don't know how they do a lot of these. They may all come bare and you have to replace those yourself, but anyway, that's all I'm working on. I said I'm getting ready just to pop these 8s out, and we're going to swap this over. So the dipstick will go over this tube here. I'm going to have to get that out of the fitting. I think that's a 17, but I'm not sure. So I've just about got most of the things except for this and the 2 sensors that are going into the back here, and then this shifter mechanism is going to have to be transferred over. So I've just about got everything. Hopefully I'll clean everything up, of course, medium Loctite on everything. I don't want anything coming loose down the road. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and just get this here removed next and swap it over. Right, so we're just slipping it down onto and I'm going to get some medium Loctite on these as well. Okay, now I've got the first sensor. It's just going to go right in here. Now this, because it's magnetic, this is how it reads. It's you can see I've cleaned some of the metal fragments off there, but it's definitely not a good sign. So if you have transmission trouble, don't kid yourself. It's not going to be anything easily fixed without doing an overhaul on one of these. There's just a whole list of issues from the valve body just to a lot of other things that have to be upgraded. Okay, I'm just tightening up that little 8mm bolt there. Okay, and here's what this little sensor looks like. Okay, so I'll just snug that up. Okay, so I'm just getting ready to put this little shifter piece on. See how it's got that slot? You'll note the slots or the flats on that part right there. So we're going to get a little bit of Loctite on this and we'll just snug that up. Okay, I should have done this little spout before I did the mount, but anyways, it just has a flare. It goes in there, pushes up against that seal, and I'm just using one of my deep sockets to snug it up. Okay, this is actually an 11/16. It seemed to fit it the best. Alright, so we got that snugged. Okay, so the line that's going here, we're going to wait on that so we don't take a risk of bending it any, moving this around. So we're just going to leave that one off, and we'll put that on after we get it in there. It actually would have been easier to just took these loose, these fittings, versus trying to pop those lines loose. So I think that we got everything swapped over at this point. You'll want to make sure you put some clean transmission fluid on both sides of your CV seals. Make sure that those are going to have plenty of fluid before you go to slapping your CV axles in. You know, you probably want to do it now while you got it out so you don't forget. But I'm going to give it a check over and make sure I ain't missed nothing here. Okay, so we do have some protective plastic nuts, and we've got the brace going on there. We'll probably leave that until we at least get it in a position so we're not having to worry about this torque converter. But I don't know, it may be more difficult to remove after I get it in there. So the only other thing I did was I took a flat file around the face and just make sure that there's not any burrs or dings or anything that's going to be sticking up. So the surface, you lightly go around and just run it lightly, and you'll know if there's anything sticking up because it'll catch on it, and you'll see a spot where some clean metals. That's the only other thing I've done. Just made sure that that was clean, free of burrs. And the locating dowels where the counterbores are, we'll put a little dab of grease there. I'll put a little dab of grease on the torque converter itself and the center nub. Other than that, we should be good to go. I think we're going to go ahead and roll it on over to the vehicle. I will have to get it up a little bit higher, which surprisingly, that, you know, they say this weighs 250 pounds, but I'm able to lift it around and move it around pretty easy, you know, doing one side at a time. So it's really not been that difficult. The only other piece that I haven't put in place, like when I say this thing is bare, they don't leave a nut or a bolt on there. This little rubber piece that goes down here at the bottom where you see those two little slots there, I'm going to put that in place. Okay, the only other thing I wanted to mention while you got this thing out here is to take and blow some air through these threads that you have and make sure those are clean, and run a bolt through each one of these threads, and even check the ones for the starter up here as well. Make sure you can get a bolt in there, because I don't know how many times I've put one in, even with it being a reman, and there may be a thread or something messed up, and you sure don't want to be having to take something back out and a thread. A lot easier to deal with it while it's out here and chase those threads. So just do a check over. Doesn't take but just a minute, and it'll save you a lot of headache later on. So all these are good, so we're going to proceed on here. Okay, so here we are. We're getting ready to slide it back under there. I've got my jack over there in place. We're going to have to lift the body slightly to be able to clear it. Okay, so we wiggled it right through here, no problem. We're pretty much home free. The only thing I need to do is lower the vehicle down, and we're just going to slide our dolly right into place. Now, as far as removing it, it would have been a lot easier, except for the rear alignment dowel was a little bit corroded and rusty, and I had to rock it to get it loose. But other than that, it came off just as easy. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead, just pushing on up here. Now, one thing to be careful of, let me show you. Of course, you want to be careful of everything, but one thing to be careful of is your water pump It's got plastic spouts coming off of it there at the back or the bottom, and I have broken those getting careless. So don't, be very careful when getting this up into place. Go slowly, get it on your alignment pegs. Be careful, because we're trying to avoid disturbing any of this coolant, and so far it's went really easy, with the exception of one bolt over here. The rest of them were very easy to get to. So anyways, the engine, as far as the engine goes, the engine itself has not moved. It's been sitting on the same jack stand and block, and it has not moved. So all I have to do is lower the frame and push it in here, and we'll just go ahead and line it up. And really, I don't even have to lower the frame, but it is kind of tilted a little bit, but I shouldn't have much trouble here. Okay, because it was a little bit off going back in, I didn't have my boards exactly the same. I did have to lower the engine slightly, and kind of got the transmission tilted a little bit. But as you can see, there's my first alignment dowel. I can move this around by hand pretty easily to line it up. I'm going to get that first bolt started right there at that alignment peg. Again, medium Loctite, and once we get that, we'll go ahead, we'll go to the back side, we'll kind of wiggle it around, we'll get the other bolt, and once we have that, we're pretty much home free. Now the only other thing, you got to watch these studs here, and they need to line up with the holes in that flex plate. Now I was looking at them, and they looked to be fairly close, but if they're not, I'll go up top and spin it from the starter side and see if I can work it around from there. But they look to be pretty close. But those studs from the torque converter have to go into the holes on the flex plate, or it ain't going anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and just work that first bolt in. Okay, so I'm just back here snugging up this alignment dowel on the back here. I got the one on the other side started good. I'm just snugging this up. I want to show you, I'm not going to get it tight just yet. I want to show you how I got those studs on the converter aligned. Okay, so you come up top and you look down through this hole where the starter goes. If you can see, well, you can't really see it now, but I could see it before. I could see the studs, and I watched it as I was putting this together, and I could tell that it was lining up. Can't see it there now at all, but I could see it from this angle up here, and I could tell that it was aligning. It was pretty close. I went out and had to adjust it just a little bit, and then I continued on snugging it up there. So we're home free. We got our alignment dowel started. All we got to do is get medium Loctite and get the other bolts in at this point. Okay, another thing before I put the rest of those bolts in, I checked, is to make sure, I had to get down here and look, but I had to make sure that there was enough of that stud that's going to be protruding to get my nuts onto. So I want to make sure that before we got all of our bolts in. So all that's good. We're going to go ahead and proceed on with getting the rest of these bolts in and get them Loctited, and then we'll get those torqued down. Okay, I was just installing this little bolt. It's got the little self-locking 17mm nut on this side. It just barely has to go through. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to tighten this right here. Okay, so the only other two we got are these that go on the very bottom down here by the that hold the actual oil pan, or go through the oil pan. Okay, so the transmission is bolted down. There was a couple that I had to use the swivel on. Other than that, wasn't a big deal. So we're going to go ahead. I think we'll go ahead and just get our starter in while we've got some of this other stuff out, and then we'll work on getting this mount over here. And I think after we do that, we'll go ahead and get our flex plate nuts onto the torque converter. I want to get this supported and get it lifted back up a little bit, I think, before I put those on. But so other than just making the connections for our cooler lines here, we don't really have anything left here to worry with. So you want to go ahead and do something, run some flush through your transmission lines as well, and try to blow as much of that out as you can. So in some cases it may even be a good idea to replace it all together, depending on the severity of the transmission. But anyways, I'm going to work on getting the starter in at this point, and I think we'll proceed on from there. We want to make sure we get this tube routed back up here behind this, our vent. Okay, I went 35 foot-pounds on the starter. I don't know if I'd already mentioned I went 35 foot-pounds on the transmission. If I did, I'm just repeating myself. But yeah, I torqued all those 35 foot-pounds. So we got the starter in. I think I'm going to work on a few of these little brackets. We got the shifter bracket that goes right back here. We'll get that on next. Okay, I had a change of plans because this starter wire and stuff is hard to get to. I'm going to hold off on those brackets back there for a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to get this bracket and mount on to the transmission here, and then we'll worry about some of this other stuff. Okay, so I'm just putting this part of the mount on first, and then we're going to slip the bracket down over the top here. Alright, so I'm just getting ready to put this on here. You see how it's kind of a little bit out of alignment, but it's nothing to scoot this thing around, and with it being on my dolly, it should move right into place. But we want to get this bolt going in, and well, we could do it either way, it doesn't matter. We could put the bracket on first, but we just want to get it lined up. Okay, so I've just lowered the frame a little bit, you know, watching things, and basically left this loose until I got this bolt through. And now we can run these bolts all the way down and get them snugged up, and we should be able to get everything out from under the vehicle here. So we got our mount supporting it. Okay, so I went 45 foot-pounds on these and 35 on these smaller bolts there, and we're going to go 45 on this bolt coming through here. Okay, I also have the supports. Now it's being supported by the mounts. Would like to point out that I have not used my cherry picker at any point. I've just been using my jacks, and that's it. Okay, so I was just going to show you, this is what goes into the transmission for the dipstick. You may have one stuck on this, which I'm not going to remove this, but here's the one that was in the transmission. I'm just going to go ahead and put that back down. You might put a little bit of grease or something on it. Okay, so we're working these wires back in place. Now, if you mark and label stuff, you won't have any trouble getting things backward, but they go bolting this down to the transmission, and then I've got these marked. Now this wire here slides kind of underneath the starter, and then we've got one ground gets a bolt through it right here, and then we'll put these back on to the starter here. Not a big deal. These tabs right here are going to have these wires connecting and snapping down onto there. So it's just mainly just, you know, label stuff so you don't get confused putting it back. Okay, I was just reattaching this bracket with the two 10mm. Remember, the wires go down and connect down there on the transmission. Clips right there on that empty threaded hole. Don't forget your 8mm on your dipstick. So we've got, we just got to get these other wires basically on their clips. We're going to get this. We're going to get this cable back down here. There's really nothing to it. We just slide it into place, and then we'll reattach that. And if I can get it lined up, just like that, and then we're just going to go under there and we'll just snap that back on. Okay, so there's that. I'm just going to snap it, get it lined up, and just firmly snap it back into place there. Okay, and you'll know when it's firmly snapped into place. It'll be down there like that. So now we've got these labeled. While we're here, we'll just go ahead and reconnect these two sensors that we swapped over. So this one's going to go here, this one's going to go there. There's also a clip, I think this thing is slid around. It goes onto this right here, basically onto this housing, and that helps hold it up out of the way so it's not rubbing on the CV there. Okay, so it should look something like that. Okay, so I got this clip back onto here, and all you do is push this back onto this circular connector. And the biggest thing is just don't get stuff in behind other stuff, because you'll be taking things back loose again. It happens a lot, unfortunately. But we're going to go ahead and just reconnect this big connector. Just clip that down. This is going to go on our bracket. We'll connect this ground right here, and looks like we're making some progress. I think this is supposed to go up, so I had that in the wrong spot. These are our O2 sensors. I need to get those back down there on that mount where they're supposed to be, so I'm going to work those back down in there. Other than that, we've got most everything up here. Okay, we got those O2 sensors reclipped on, and we got this safety switch, neutral safety switch reconnected. Push that on really hard. So everything's all good there. I think we're going to go ahead at this point and get the may go ahead and get this bracket on right here. I do need to connect my my transmission cooler lines, so probably going to get on those next as soon as I get this bracket in place. We just tightened this cable, and we got the clip goes in there, and we secured that ground. So the battery tray is in. Usually what I like to do though is before I go to putting the whole tray back in is set the battery, run everything so I can actually see what's going on with the leaks and stuff, because once you start getting all that in here you can't see nothing. So we'll probably do that at first. And like I said, I do got the lines the lines on down there. Take the time to blow those out, and maybe run some cleaner through them just to get any debris that's in your transmission cooler. Okay, here we are. We got our self-locking nuts. We're going to go ahead and start working these into place. Be very cautious. You don't want to drop them and lose them. And so what we're going to do is we're going to tighten this first one up a little bit, and then we're going to back it off a couple turns so it's a little bit loose so the other ones line up the way they're supposed to. Actually, on these it won't make any difference if you loosen them off. We're going to go ahead and rotate it around and get these other 3 15 millimeters on here though, and then we're going to come back and torque them. Usually go about 25-35 foot-pounds on these. Okay, so while holding the crank, we just went through and we torqued these to 35 foot-pounds. So now the only thing we have to do is replace the little rubber dust piece that goes in here. Okay, at this point I got my subframe. I'm going to go ahead and roll this back underneath the vehicle and get it up into place. I said it's not even really that heavy, but you could use your jacks or whatever to lift it up into place, ever how you want to do it. Or you could simply just lower the vehicle back down. But we're going to get these bolts started and get it back in place. We'll get the collar back onto the steering there. Okay, this is how I'm setting it into place. I'm just lifting it up and putting the jack stand under there, and I'm just going to lift it a little bit at a time on each side. Okay, so the subframe is back in place. We tighten these to 100 foot-pounds. So now I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to work on getting our CV axles back into place. I'll probably pop this knuckle on here first, and we'll work this CV axle back in place. We're going to make sure we have plenty of transmission fluid on those before we pop these back in. But so the subframe is really easy. Okay, so I just slipped this knuckle back on. I'm getting ready to pop this driver's side CV axle back in. So I'm going to hit it out here with my rubber mallet a little bit. Alright, so that's down nice and flush there. We'll go ahead and get ready to get it back into the knuckle here. Okay, and I always grease these down real good before I go back in with them. So we're just going to push that up. Okay, so we're going to try to line up these. Oh, and that happens too. Now we just need to get the nuts on the other side. Okay, so we just need to tighten down this bolt here and get our tie rod tightened down, and then we'll just need to get a rotor brake caliper back on. So I'm going to go ahead and got this snug down. We'll run it down with the impact. I'm going to go ahead and go over and put the other CV axle back in place. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is this stub that slides over those studs. I'm going to slip that back up into the transmission there. Okay, so I've got the end of this greased. So make sure you have plenty of grease on those and just clean them up. This, and usually if you get it lined up, you can usually pop it on. Okay, there we go. Okay, grease that, and we're just getting ready to slip this knuckle on here. Hopefully it's going to cooperate. Okay, hold this out of the way. Okay, there it's seated. Now I am going to slip and also make sure to grease. I've got white lithium on these splines, and inside of the, also got it inside of the knuckle here. I'm getting ready just to slide it up into place here. So the more you grease stuff, it'll be a little easier the next time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and work on slipping this back in here. Okay, I had to tap this a little knuckle a little bit with my rubber mallet to get enough thread started there. This is one of the more tighter CV axles. Usually they slip in a lot easier. Okay, we finished getting the tie rods and all the other components. We got the brake caliper back on, and I'm going to leave the torque specs for this stuff. What we're fixing to do here is we're going to get up here. You can see that pinch collar there. We're going to put this bolt back in there. So we're going to get some high strength red Loctite, and I'm going to get my extension just like I took it out, and we're going to go ahead and just put that bolt right there back into place. And probably the next thing we're going to get on, since we're done with the wheels and stuff, we're going to get our braces and some of the other things underneath. Okay, I got my extension on there, just fixing to torque this to 35. I fed it up in there with a magnet just to get it into place. Okay, we got our other braces here. We're going to have to get this one piece right here in first. So we're going to go ahead and crawl under here. Now this guy has the mount, goes in the front, and we just have to get under here and work it into place. I want to show you the bolt right back here. Went 45 foot-pounds on that rear bolt. Now, to get that to line up, all you got to do is grab with your hand and pull this engine. It's like on a rotisserie here, and it'll move real easy. It'll allow you to line that bolt. So you want to make sure to get that in. So next time we're going to put this on here, and then we're going to get these two bolts up here started into the front, and then of course we have the mount bolt going through the center of that. So we're going to go ahead and work this into place. Okay, so we're going to try to set this back part first here. Okay, so it's taking a little work up here with this mount. It's not wanting to line up for me. Alright, so we're going to take our 21 millimeter nut, and we'll just get that started good where it's going to hold it a little bit, and then we'll work on this bolt up here. Okay, so we're going to take our bolt, just go through that mount first. We're not going to get it tight just quite yet. Well, let's see if I can get it a little bit farther down. So we want to get our other bolts under here lined up. So go ahead and get these started. And something's not lining up just right, it doesn't feel like. Okay, that one's going. Okay, so there we go. So I always want to try to make sure to get things started by hand. We'll run these down a little bit. I'm going to torque all these here to 45 foot-pounds. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and torque these two first, and I'm going to torque that rear 21 millimeter. I'm just going to be going 45 foot-pounds. Okay, I got my deep 21. Got our torque wrench set to 45. And you could probably go more on this. I'm just kind of doing them all at 45. Yeah, because it's such a big bolt, I mean, you could probably go 100 foot-pounds on that. You're not going to hurt it. Okay, so we're going to go 45 on these. Okay, now we just got the one going through the mount here. Go 45 on this. Okay, we're getting ready to install our brace here. Just going to kind of get our bolts started here. So I'm going to go 45 on these as well. Okay, so we got the bolts started. We're just going to start snugging them down. Okay, now we're going to get the torque wrench on it here. I said you can put the exhaust in first, just whichever you prefer, but I can do it with this brace in here. Okay, when going back in, I'm just laying it above the brace there. And then I'm going to go ahead and just start working it into place. Usually work on these upper manifolds here first, or cats. Okay, the first one I like to get started is this one on the back here. We'll get the nuts going on it. Okay, and then we'll get this one here. Let's push this collar up. I usually don't even torque these. I'd say about 35 to 45 foot-pounds be sufficient. Okay, now we're just going to get on the rear one there. Okay, now we just got this O2 sensor, and these little places right here slip back onto the studs. Don't forget those. Okay, that's going to be everything for now other than just getting our fluids in, so we're going to go ahead and work on that. Okay, so I went ahead and got the wheels back on. I still got it lifted up here, but I want to go ahead. I'm going to get the transmission fluid filled. I'm using Mercon V. I'm going to get, I don't know how much it's going to take because this is a remand, and even the used ones will have a lot of fluid still in them, but I don't know with this one it may be completely empty. So I'm just going to have to see how much it's going to hold. And, you know, run it through the gears and just fill it. Probably going to put about at least 6 quarts in here to start with, just to get started and just see where I'm at. And hopefully we're going to be testing this out. I'm just going to leave like I said, leave that battery tray out. Or what I might do is just get one bolt going in there so I can take it up if I've got to get in here and look or anything, but I just hate to get a whole lot bolted down and have a leak or something going on that I can't see. So I may go ahead and set that. Okay, I've just got 6 quarts in it. I'm going to go ahead and get the negative connected here and crank it up and just start running it through some gears. Okay, we got it cranked up here. We're going to start checking for leaks and start running it through some gears and stuff. And make sure we don't have any drips or leaks or anything. Okay, I now have 7 quarts. I've been running it through gears. I checked it, it's still real low. I'm going to go ahead and put another quart in it. Okay, now I've got 8 and it's still really low here. I'm going to go ahead and put another one. Okay, with 9 quarts it seems to be almost perfect right now. Of course, I'm going to have to take it for a test drive and get it fully warmed up and drive to see how it's going to do for sure, and see where we'll have to check it again, but it's like almost perfect where it's at right now. Okay, here we are test driving this thing, and I've checked the fluid out, and the fluid's nice and full, nice and clean, and it's actually shifting really good. When I had it up on the blocks and I was shifting through the gears, I thought it felt like it was moving a little more than it should be, but with it on the ground and the weight on it, it's shifting perfectly. And I know we're kind of going into the sun here, but I just wanted to show you how this was doing. It's at 131,000 miles, and this transmission went out. And I had it up to about 65 earlier, but it's shifting nice and smooth. It's been a pretty good little project. I was kind of happy to not have to mess with any of the coolant, but while working on this, I actually seen that it's dripping water from somewhere, so I'm gonna have to take a look at it. It may be having to mess with the coolant after all. I was trying to avoid all that. So said it's shifting really good. Really nice and smooth. And I'm going to put my seatbelt on. Okay, so here we go again. We're going to Got the brakes squealing a little bit, but you know, that's what happens when you take everything apart and put it back together sometimes. I did have quite a time getting these CV axles and stuff off. A lot of rust on those. I'm going to take it out on the freeway here directly and open up. But so far, I mean, I'm pretty pleased with it. So we better slow down a little bit here. But I just wanted to test it out on that straightaway there. But I'm going to take it out on the freeway here shortly and run it. But the fluid, I've been driving it around a little bit. I got it up to temperature, and I've checked the fluid even before I moved it several times, and the fluid has been right on. But I haven't actually driven it around very long, but so far I've got 9 quarts. I guess it's supposed to take about 10 or so, so I guess there was a quart in there still left from when they overhauled it or tested on the dyno. So anyways, I'm kind of happy with how it turned out. It seems to be a really good transmission. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video. I don't know if I talked about the cost of the transmission. This reman was almost $1,500 for the transmission, and about $100 worth of fluids and other stuff. So, you know, about $1,600 you can plan on having in it. Now, it's hard to give you a time frame of how long exactly this transmission took, because I've been doing a lot of other things to it. But I've had the vehicle for not quite 2 weeks, just shy of a day shy of 2 weeks, and I just got the transmission 4 days ago. I went and picked it up Monday, so actually I've been working on it for 3 days. So I've been messing with it 3 days, but it's like I said, I've been doing other stuff as well. So you probably could say that about 4 or 5 days on replacing this, but it hadn't been really long days. But like I said, I've been messing with it for right at about 2 weeks altogether, but I've been doing a lot of other stuff. If you follow my channel, and I've made a lot of other videos, and I've been doing a lot of other work on it. So anyways, as I said, it turned out great. I'm sure there's going to be some other bugs to work out, but I'm going to take it out on the freeway here next and drive it and test it out real good and see how it's going to do. But so far, so good. Everything's worked out great. I didn't have to disturb any coolant or mess with a whole lot of that, and didn't have to take the engine out. So I was really happy with that. But anyways, you know, you might look at least a week, you know, if you want to do this replacement. But like, I was doing a lot of other things, and so I even had some days where it was raining and this and that. So it's kind of hard to even give you a time, but I would guess about 4 or 5 days, you know, just working a little bit. But it's turned out really good. I'm happy with it, but I'm going to test it out some more, see how it's going to do, and hopefully, you know, this video can help someone else out. Like I said, I tried to remove the minimal amount of stuff getting this transmission out of here. So anyway, cost, you know, you're looking at about $1,600 probably, depending on where you get your transmission. But if you're really going to get one that's been overhauled, you're going to have to spend some money. I don't think you're going to find one less than $1,000. But anyways, I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. As always, I invite you to subscribe, and thank you for watching.